Ladies and gentlemen, we are getting so close to the ever-coveted Oscar nominations. They're coming up. The Academy Awards are going to nominate their films and their performances and all the tech categories that are most likely going to once again leave me with a broken heart and a shattered pride. I do this every year where I give you my predictions throughout the early part of the season leading up to the nominations. I have another round of early predictions for you. The nominations will be coming out on January 17th from the Academy. I am purposefully recording this prior to the Golden Globe ceremony. The Golden Globes are coming up in about 4 days from when I'm recording on Monday the 5th. I wanted to make this video to give you another round of my predictions so that I'm not swayed by what happens at the Globes. Of course, I am factoring in some of the nominations that we know at the Golden Globes, as well as many other precursors. A lot of critic guilds have given out their awards. A lot of other nominations have been announced in major awards bodies. I've kind of tallied all that up. I've mentioned this before. I have a spreadsheet that I update probably once or twice a week, but I only do a video about once a month. So here is my most recent round of predictions for the top of the line categories. My bottom of the line predictions will be coming soon, but it will be after the Globes give out theirs. The 17th, when the Academy announces their nominees, I will give you one final video with all of my predictions leading up to probably a day or two before the nominations drop, and we can see how wrong I am. Although last year I was about 75% accurate, which is pretty good. All right, as always, there's a legend in the bottom of the screen for you so you can see what these different icons mean. In looking at Best Picture, The Brutalist, I shot up to my number one. I'm leaving as of right now as my predictor to win Best Picture. The film I was not as high on as a lot of people I've heard in the critical community. I did like the movie, but I felt like it was a bit auteur for auteur's sake. I'm not saying it was pretentious necessarily, but I saw like the Terrence Malick kind of influences and just the craft and the technical achievements around the film being shot in VistaVision, which felt like a very deliberate choice to kind of get certain people in the industry's attention. Maybe the Academy is a part of that. I do like the movie. I don't want you to misunderstand what I'm saying. But my point is, I think it stands the best chance to win because of all those other kind of things that don't really have to do with what is actually in the movie itself. Of course, the performances are awesome, and they're going to get a lot of nominations as well. But I think because of all of the Oscar-friendly things that went into making The Brutalist, that it's going to get a ton of votes from the Academy. So right now, I've got it winning. With that being said, Conclave, I'm not going to use the word scares me because I also really liked Conclave and I would completely be fine with that winning Best Picture. But I think Conclave should scare a lot of other people in the race because this is a top-down voting that the Academy does. So they kind of rank the films 1 through 10. What I think might end up happening with a movie like Conclave is a lot of folks liked it. A lot of folks, especially the older you get, which a lot of Academy members are older, the older you get, the more you liked it, right? I think if a lot of people rank it like third or fourth best, and those all add up, I mean, if you've got 100 people ranking it third, then the points are going to accumulate a lot more than a movie like Anora, which some people may rank as their number one, but then you might get a bunch of people that rank it like 8, 9, or 10, and then they kind of cancel each other out. But if you get a lot of voters kind of voting in that middle 3, 4, 5 range for Conclave, I think the points are going to add up. And what's awesome about that is that system that I just explained really kind of mirrors what's happening in Conclave and the voting for the new Pope. It's a little archaic. A lot of people have said that about the Academy voting as well. But we go through this every year. We do what we do. But I think the Conclave hive may rise up enough to upset a movie like The Brutalist. But right now, those two are like neck and neck for, I just don't know, but I would imagine it would be one of those two movies winning Best Picture this year. And then the rest of the lineup, Just to look at it real quick, Anora is my pick for Best Movie of the Year, at least among the ones that are probably going to get a nomination. I think it dropped down here just because of the commentary I already gave you about The Brutalist and Conclave. I think Anora is going to be a more divisive, voted on picture than those other two. But I think it's going to be Sean Baker specifically, and that style of independent filmmaking is going to be lauded up. And it will be enough to get it to like that third spot, but I just don't think it's going to be able to overcome some of those other obstacles that I mentioned. Wicked, I left alone. I think Wicked is the like blockbuster, feel-good entry this year, along with Dune Part 2. I think those two movies are like the GA and the general masses flock to those films, and they're also really good films on top of that. But Wicked is like the feel-good picture in this group. It's the movie that we need right now, especially from a Hollywood perspective. Like, let's give the people something to lift them up. It's a new year, 2025. Wicked, the musical of our generation, which is an argument that could be made. I think it's a great picture. I don't think it stands a chance to win as we're sitting here, but if enough of that commentary kind of seeps into the voters' brains of the feel-good movie, making people feel good about the movie that wins, rewatching that Best Picture winner over the years, then maybe it stands a chance. Right now, I have it at number 4. Amelia Perez, I moved up a couple spots for my last video. If there's any Amelia Perez fans tuning into this video, I want to apologize up front, but I just don't get it. I did not like the movie. When we reviewed it on my podcast about a month ago, I gave it a 4 out of 10. There's only like one good song in the movie. The performances from Zoe Saldana and Gaston are brilliant, but the material and the story around them, I just didn't connect to, and it felt a little off kilter. It didn't connect with me. It was like it was missing puzzle pieces that never came together. The last act kind of fell apart. Anyway, that's my personal opinion. That's not going to play into the Oscar voters. My point is that the industry loves Amelia Perez. Now, from a musical perspective, I much prefer Wicked. But if both of those get nominated, you've got 2 musicals in the top 10, and I think that's going to happen. It's going to get a ton of nominations. You're probably looking at anywhere from like 8 to 11 nominations for Amelia Perez, and I think one of them is Best Picture. Dune Part 2 has been getting a bit of a shaft so far this award season. I'm leaving it put right there in the middle of the pack. I'm worried about my boy, Denis Villeneuve. We'll talk about that here in a second when we get to director. But right now, I'm leaving Dune Part 2 right around number 6 for Best Picture. I do think it gets in. I just think people are like, Dune 3, Dune Messiah is coming. So let's do a Lord of the Rings thing. Let's wait. Denis is going to be around. He's going to make these movies. There's going to be sandworms. We can recognize it next year in a couple years. Like, we're good. We don't need to vote for it right now. Dune Part 2 is borderline masterpiece. If not a masterpiece, from 2024. And it's a shame that it won't get more gold this year, but I see it kind of slipping in the strength rating as we go through award season, which is unfortunate. Sing Sing, I dropped down when I had to move Amelia Perez up. Sing Sing, I feel like A24 fumbled that a little bit in the last quarter of the year. It's still not even playing around me, and I'm recording this in early January. It did have a short run here in my city, and I didn't even know about it. It went away after like a week or two at a very independent cinema close by. I didn't even know. Luckily, I got a screener for it, and I was able to see it because otherwise I would have no way to even talk about the movie. I love the film. It's another feel-good film, but where is it? I don't understand why A24 held on to this for so long, because Coleman Domingo should be the front runner. Clarence Macklin is my pick for supporting actor among the names that are getting tossed around. It's just not accessible enough to the general public to really get that chatter going to where the masses really care about Sing Sing or even know what it is when you mention it. And they're going to their multiplexes on the weekend. They're not seeing the poster and they're not seeing it on the marquee. I love A24. I'm an A24 fanboy. I just don't know why they didn't push that movie harder, because I also feel like it is a very Oscar-friendly movie that probably would perform very well. But because of the rollout and the lack of marketing, if you will, for Sing Sing, I just don't feel very strongly about it. Although I do still have it in my top 10. I just dropped it down a couple spots there. And The Substance. Talk about a movie coming up out of nowhere, especially with the Golden Globe nominations and then winning some other things at smaller guilds so far. and the nominations with those folks as well for Margaret Qualley, Demi Moore, the movie, Coralie for director, is another one like Emilia Perez where I see that and I go, man, the critics and the industry love this thing. Now, as a horror fanatic, I was reluctant to ever put it near any of my prediction list. Demi Moore's always been kind of in my near misses, and we'll get there in a second for actress. But they just don't award horror. There's a horror bias among the Academy that's been talked about for really 97 years. They just don't do it. Every 10 years or so, they'll nominate something in the horror genre. So maybe this is it for a movie like The Substance. I just added it to my predictions. I don't feel strong about it because, like I said, of the horror bias, but I do love the notoriety it's been getting thus far. And as a horror guy and kind of trying to put those vibes out there, sure, The Substance for Best Picture. Let's do it. And then I dropped down Nickel Boys and A Complete Unknown. Those two round out my top 10. A Complete Unknown, the Academy typically loves James Mangold pictures and they love biopics. And Timothée Chalamet slayed. He ate in this role as Bob Dylan. We'll get there in a second for Best Actor, but I think because of all those shrinks on the plus column for A Complete Unknown, and because of Mangold's history with the Academy, I mean, he even got nominated for Ford v Ferrari, got nominated for Best Picture, and I mean, it was good, but Best Picture for Ford v Ferrari kind of surprised me at the time. They love Mangold, his history with the Academy, Walk the Line, etc. And then Nickel Boys is another one that the industry is going to really be drawn to. Similarly to what I talked about with The Brutalist when it comes to the craft and the way it was made and the camera angles from Ramel Ross, the way the film is shot in this very unique, frankly, groundbreaking type of POV. You know, the film, it's one of those films that you're either going to be into the way it's shot from the first 10 minutes or it's just not going to be for you. I was kind of in the middle. Like, I really appreciated the art of it, but the narrative was tough to follow because I did find that artful way of filming it a bit distracting from the overall narrative and kind of what our minds are used to in modern cinema. Now I'm in the wrong there, not the movie. I think the movie's brilliant and I love the swings that Ross took in the movie. I think the Academy will as well. Those round out my nominees currently for Best Picture. All right, moving into lead actress. Mikey Madison for Anora, I think, is the front runner and has been. I worry about that front runner curse being on her because she's really been the front runner definitely since I started making these lists, but like back in August, September, everybody's like Mikey Madison, Academy Award winning turn in Anora as Annie. I agree with it. I just know that sometimes the early front runners just can't stabilize all the way through award season. I hope I'm wrong because I'm currently still predicting her to win the Academy Award, which actually, ever since I did this first video back in the 1st of September, she was my pick. I haven't moved it. She is my prediction for Best Actress until something really, really changes my mind. Demi Moore for The Substance. We just talked about it. Now, look, the cross indicates that she's a new entry on this list. Look where she is. She's at number 2. I can't believe the amount of guilds and Golden Globes and Critics' Choice and the high-profile awards that are giving her a nomination. I mean, I can believe it based on the performance, but again, because of the horror thing, I didn't see it happening, so I'm kind of eating crow because I'm putting her in my predictions now extremely high up. And also her lineage in Hollywood. She's been acting since she was a teenager, a child actor, who has basically lived her entire life in the spotlight, in the Hollywood kind of legend. She's been a part of it, at least in our generation, in our time. So I think she's there. I don't think she can beat Mikey Madison right now, but I think she's in the 5. I've got her at number 2. I talked about Carlia Sofia Gasson for Emilia Perez. It wasn't my favorite performance in that movie, but I think it is a great performance. And I think that being the kind of message around the nomination is huge too, because it would be the first trans actor to be nominated for any major Academy Award, which would be amazing, especially in the time that we're living in. So I'm all about that from like a political perspective. I think there's some other performances, if we were just basing this off performance, that are more deserved. But nonetheless, I think Gasson gave a great performance, and I've already talked about how much the industry loves Emilia Perez. So I think she's in pretty easily. Then I just switched Cynthia Erivo and Angelina Jolie. You know, I saw Maria since I recorded my last video, and I had Angelina Jolie in number 2 behind Mikey Madison for a couple months there. The movie suffers from, I won't say being bad, because I think I gave it like a 6 out of 10, but it suffers from being carried by one performance. And if you look at a film and you go, the only really good thing or takeaway from the movie is that performance, then there's just not a lot else to talk about. You know, I think of Renee Zellweger in Judy, for example. And of course she won, but it's a very similar thing where the movie didn't really hit for me, but her performance was like awe-inspiring. And we have the same thing here with Angelina Jolie. I think she gets into the 5, but I think her chances are dwindling in terms of a win, just because some of these other actresses like Demi Moore, for example, who've also had that longevity in Hollywood and are in a movie that's going to be received in other facets like text and whatnot. Probably director, I'm hoping. We'll get there in a second. And then Cynthia Erivo for Wicked would round out my top 5. I think the feel-good movie and the performance in the movie, that is the central focus of the story. And Cynthia Erivo can sing. The way it was performed and the nuance of the character that Erivo brought to life, I think earns her an Academy Award nomination. Now, for this 5th spot, if it was up to me, which it's not, Fernanda Torres would be in the top 5 for Best Actress. That performance in I'm Still Here, in fact, on this whole page right here, with the exception of maybe Mikey Madison, affected me the most. It was one of the most affecting performances, frankly, I've ever seen. Her like story of motherhood and the familial bonds and keeping the family together and the tragedy and the sadness and the memories, and like Fernanda Torres is just brilliant. I cried. She is so powerful in that movie. I don't think she's going to get in. It's going to depend on what happens leading up to the 17th. Of course, voting has already started for the Oscars, but I don't know. I just hope enough members see it that maybe I'll be wrong. But right now, I think Erivo is the more popular, no pun intended, pick. And more people are going to have seen that and are going to know about that. A lot of people, if I wasn't a film critic, I probably would have never even heard of I'm Still Here. And that was also my introduction to Fernanda Torres as well. I just didn't know anything about the movie or her until this award season, but that's because I'm a critic with FYC campaigns coming my way and that kind of thing. Not everybody's like that. So I just hope enough people see it. Marianne Jean-Baptiste is amazing in Hard Truths. She basically plays a Karen yelling at people. And then we get to see the softer side of that character in the second half of the movie. So it's a very layered, complex performance. I dropped her out because, unfortunately, a lot of guilds and the Globes are leaving her out. She's missing. And I don't really know why, because it is a great performance and it deserves to be nominated. But it is a pretty crowded field with some big names, too. As we go down the list, you see Nicole Kidman there for Baby Girl. I just switched her with Torres. Nicole Kidman's great. I just don't see Baby Girl getting a lot of awards love that would make me go, okay, they're going to give Kidman the Oscar. I wouldn't be surprised if she got nominated. It's a very vulnerable, courageous performance in that movie, and it would be deserved, but I just don't see it happening. Amy Adams, I'm leaving alone. When I started these back in early September, she was like 3 or 4. She was in my top 5 for a long time because I didn't want to admit that they weren't going to nominate her because she is so good in Night Bitch. I just did my personal top 10 performances of the year, my favorites, and I put her, I think, at number 6 on that list. I just loved her performance, but I think kind of like what we said a minute ago about Maria, the rest of the movie, nobody's really saying anything spectacular about, including Mariel Heller, which is a bummer. People are kind of turned off about the surrealistic kind of fantasy aspects of Night Bitch. I loved it for the allegory that it was about motherhood and your body transforming after you give birth to a child and etc. I didn't see any issue with it, but a lot of people do, and it's been missing. She's been missing. I'm leaving her here in the 10, but I think it is a Hail Mary to think that she would get nominated this year. And then Kate Winslet for Lee is a new entry for me, and it's also one of the very few films I have not seen yet. It's Kate Winslet. There's a pretty big grassroots campaign around her right now. She's popped up in a couple guilds that I wasn't expecting, and I don't really have anybody more prominent to put in the top 10. So Kate Winslet right now for Lee is rounding out my top 10. That's a movie I hope to catch before I do my next video. Looking at Best Actor, this section might be quick because not a lot has changed for me, with the exception of my predicted winner. But this is a pretty... I feel like this 5... Let me just run through them real quick. I feel like this 5 is our Oscar 5 for actor. Chalamet, Adrian Brody, Ray Fiennes, Coleman Domingo, and Daniel Craig. I think that is our 5. The question is, who wins? I think Daniel Craig is sneaking in at the 5th spot. I don't think he could win. But the other 4, I don't know. I do not know. I'm putting Chalamet, and I just switched him with Brody. I'll explain my logic. I think The Brutalist is going to rack up from a technical standpoint, and you'll see when I do my bottom of the line video for that. I think I'm also predicting it to win Best Picture, as you saw. And when we get to director, I have something else to say about that as well. And same thing with supporting roles. So Brody's won before. When he won for The Pianist, he was the youngest actor to win that. Guess what? If Timothée Chalamet wins this year, he will break that record and will now be the youngest actor to win the Academy Award for Best Actor. I think the narrative is really juicy, and I think The Brutalist is going to get plenty of gold. I'm not saying Brody is better than Chalamet or Chalamet is better than Brody. They're basically tied. Really, all 4 of those top 4 actors are basically tied in their performances. They're all amazing. They all carry the film. They're all memorable. Timothée Chalamet is my favorite. Also, his awards press tour right now is absolute gold. The College Game Day shit, the video of him dancing in a warehouse to Black Eyed Peas. I mean, the guy is like on fire in terms of like pop culture, like draw. That's going to help him, I think. And I think everybody in the Academy is probably seeing the same thing that we're seeing on social media and various TV shows, etc. And not only that, he really turns into Bob Dylan in that movie, and he learned how to play harmonica and guitar. The voice inflection, playing Bob Dylan and speaking like Bob Dylan is not talking like a normal dude. I mean, this is an icon of the industry and also has a Hollywood tie as well. He's in movies as well, or was. So I think that that's going to be enough to get Chalamet enough in the ranked voting to get him Best Actor. Brody is his stiff competition. It is a two-headed race right now for Best Actor. I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. But if I'm picking right now, which I am, I'm going Timothée Chalamet. Then when you get down to the near misses, not a lot's changed there either. I did put Hugh Grant in my predictions for Heretic. I just got the Golden Globe nomination. He's also been showing up at some guilds recently. I loved his performance. He's a veteran in Hollywood who is overdue. I don't think he can sneak past somebody like Daniel Craig to get into that 5th spot, but I think he's climbing up the charts. Let's just put it that way. And then the 2 I dropped down to round out the 10 were Glenn Powell for Hitman and Jesse Eisenberg for Real Pain. I don't need to spend a ton of time on those 2 because I frankly don't think they have any shot of being nominated, but I love their performances, and I think they're at least in the conversation for that 10 to 15 actors. Sebastian Stan is in there twice for both movies. I think the better performance is in The Apprentice, but I think the Academy is going to stay away from that movie because of the Trump tie-in, even though I disagree with that logic. But I think that's what they're going to do. So if Stan were to get nominated, it would be for a year of a body of work that's pretty amazing, but it would probably be a different man. So Daniel Craig is hanging on there in Luca Guadagnino's Queer. It's an amazing turn, a very brave, batshit crazy performance from Craig that is definitely not James Bond, definitely not Knives Out, nothing we've seen from him before, and would be worthy of a nomination. I just think he's got people coming up on his heels there. So he needs to be checking the rearview mirror. But right now, that's what I've got for Best Actor. All right, let me try to move this along real quick as we get into the supporting performances. Ariana Grande, I just swapped her with Zoe Saldana for Wicked. Kind of like what I said earlier with Chalamet. Grande has that like pop culture cool quality. And I think that could be enough to push her to it. She is phenomenal on Wicked. I didn't even have her in my predictions before the movie came out. After seeing the movie and being so blown away by her performance, she's charming, she's funny. I think she can do it. And not only that, I think Emilia Perez is going to get so many nominations that folks voting in the acting body might say, well, Amelia Perez is got all these other branches can do what they want to do with that movie. What are we going to vote for? Where are we going to rank these performances? It's another one very, very similar to Brody and Chalamet, where I just don't know, but I do think those two ladies, Saldana and Grande, are your two. And they'll open the envelope and we'll find out. But I think it's between those two. Whichever name they don't call was probably the runner-up. Rounding out the 5, Felicity Jones, I've left her at The Brutalist. I thought she was underused in that movie. Frankly, I thought she was underused, and it didn't have anything to do in the first half of the film. She's not even in it. I love her, and I love what she did in the movie. It's just a bit of a theme this year with supporting actress, because I feel the same way about Isabella Rossellini, who I moved up with Danielle Deadwyler to round out that top 5. Deadwyler is an absolute force in The Piano Lesson. The movie's mediocre. She is a brilliant, haunting, memorable performance that you will not soon forget. And she is an actress that her snub from Till is looming large over the Academy offices, because there is no way in hell she should not have gotten nominated for Till a couple years ago. And I think that might actually help her here with The Piano Lesson. I've got her in the 5. Isabella Rossellini is another one that is not in Conclave enough for my personal preference to be nominated, but I think she will be because of her lineage in Hollywood and her name. And also, she's been showing up. She's been getting nominations that I didn't expect her to get, which could be a trend all the way to Academy Morning. We'll see. Because of that, I had to drop Ellis Taylor down for Nickel Boys. It's a movie, like I said earlier, where the style kind of overshadows the narrative of the film. But if there's a performance to be reckoned with in that movie, it's definitely hers. And if it's going to get a performance nomination, it's going to be her in this category. Right now, I got her just missing. But could she take over Deadwyler or Rossellini? Absolutely. I'll make another one of these videos right before the nominations are announced. And we'll see if I budge on that or if I decide to move Ellis Taylor up and swap her with somebody. And then there you see the round out the top 10. Selena Gomez for Amelia Perez, Margaret Qualley, and Joan Chen. Those are 2 new entries for me. On the last video, Monica Barbaro for A Complete Unknown was a new entry. I dropped her a little bit down. Surprisingly, Elle Fanning has actually got nominated for a couple of awards in the guilds. And Monica Barbaro, although I think from a supporting actress standpoint, that's a Complete Unknown's performance. But she just hasn't been getting the mentions. I haven't heard it talked about enough. We'll see how it goes over the next month or so. But right now, I dropped her down. She's kind of down there at the bottom with Joan Chen for Dee Dee. Another one that has been mentioned occasionally on the award circuit with various nominations, but I just don't think there's enough support for that independent film that not a lot of people saw to get her into that 5. Margaret Qualley is a new entry here for me. And honestly, in a couple weeks, if I were to move her into the 5, I wouldn't be surprised. I want to see how some of these other nominations that she's gotten have shaken out. I think Demi Moore's the performance that the Academy is really going to lock in on when it comes to voting, as opposed to Qualley. I mean, how messed up would it be if Qualley got nominated and Moore didn't? They're both great, but that would be kind of weird. It would just be weird to accept. It'd be like the Academy took the substance and then, what came out is what did the voting. I don't know. Video's running long, as usual, so I'm going to try to speed it up. For supporting actor, we only have a couple more categories. For supporting actor, I am not budging. I don't give a F. Clarence Macklin for Sing Sing has been my prediction for supporting actor since September. Early September. I'm not budging on it. Everybody's saying Kieran Culkin this and Guy Pearce this. Now, don't be mistaken. Those are your top 3. I've said it with basically all the acting categories. Nobody knows. It's a toss-up. There's no one person. Mikey Madison is probably the closest thing to like one person being locked in. Macklin, Culkin, or Pierce, any of them could win this award, and I'd go, okay, yeah, that's the winner. But as of right now, the narrative around Sing Sing and Clarence Macklin portraying himself in a movie, reenacting and reliving his time in prison, and in the performing arts, art is a central focus of this movie. Community is a central focus. And the performances from him and Coleman Domingo they just bounce off each other so well. But this dude is not like a classically trained actor. And I was floored by his performance and the fact that it was rooted in reality. And the other actors in the movie, it's similar to Nomadland. You remember Nomadland a few years ago racked up the Academy Awards, won Best Picture, Chloe Zhao. That's a similar thing because those were actual nomads that traveled the countryside like that, playing themselves in the movie. Now we have it again, fast forward to 2 or 3 years, with Sing Sing, and it's a very uplifting film. Academy. Macklin. I mean, what are we doing? Kieran Culkin and Guy Pearce are amazing. I know that. But if you're watching, Clarence Macklin stood toe-to-toe with those guys. These guys are doing it week in and week out, Succession, whatever. Killed it. Similarly, Yuri Borisov in Anora is also, he did some Russian stuff. I saw TV, whatever. He's not a classical American actor in a Sean Baker film. And look what he did in that movie. And his kind of grounded anchoring with Annie in that film, played by Madison. Another brilliant addition here to my top 5. I'm adding him. I just bumped him up. And I switched him with Denzel Washington, who I think is easily the best thing about Gladiator 2. It just hasn't been well received. I mean, I didn't hate it, but Denzel is the thing about that movie that should be recognized. He is hamming it up, having the time of his life. Right now, I've got him in that 5th spot. Now, could Edward Norton take that 5th spot? Yes. In fact, I thought about doing it for this prediction because those are 2 names that Hollywood Academy members see. Denzel Washington versus Edward Norton. They've both been around forever. They both have illustrious careers. They're both previous nominees. I mean, the Academy loves both of them, you would think. So maybe that's a situation where it really is going to be the performance. They're going to watch those 2 movies, and which one of those 2 performances is 5th spot worthy for them. Right now, I've got Denzel because Edward Norton in the movie as Pete Seeger is great, but it's a very one-note performance. It's very like, oh, shucks, buddy. Like, let me talk to you about folk music. And, you know, and he's great at it. And I know that that's how Seeger was. So he really did, you know, capture that character. But he just doesn't go anywhere else with it. It's very monotone. Whereas Denzel's all over the fucking place. I mean, he's telling jokes. He's, you know, having sex with ladies. I mean, he's everywhere in this movie. So very animated character in that film. Not a lot's changed. I got Adam Pearson for A Different Man, Jeremy Strong for The Apprentice, which is one of my strongest performances, no pun intended. I just added Brian Tyree Henry from The Fire Inside. He's a local dude here where I live in North Carolina. I love that guy. And he's been nominated before from the Academy when I didn't really expect it. And he is great in The Fire Inside. And I think that it could be something to watch out for. Right now, I've got him in a near miss, but that could be something to look out for, too, as the next few weeks roll along here with the Critics' Awards coming out and the Globes, etc. And then Bill Skarsgård for Nosferatu, just the dedication to that iconic character. And having seen the film, and it's actually my number 1 film of the year as we're sitting here, man, what a day that would be. What a glorious morning that would be if he were to be nominated. I don't think he stands a chance. It's a horror movie, so what are we even talking about? All right, the last category we're going to talk about real quick is for Best Director. Now, I told you, The Brutalist, Best Picture, right? What does that mean? Best Director, Brady Corbet. It's not my pick for Best Director. I've talked a little bit about that already when I talked about the Best Picture for the movie. But I think they're going to go hand in hand because the direction is brilliant. And it employs a lot of things the Academy are going to love. A lot of the way the film is shot, the aspect ratios, the Vista Vision that calls back to like the 1960s and 70s. I don't even think that technology has been used in like 30 years. And he's resurrecting it here and making a pretty big statement that he's resurrecting. It shows up in the opening title card. I just think that's a film industry movie, The Brutalist. Anora, Sean Baker, I haven't moved him. I've got him right there. I moved up the rest of the 5. Coralie Farjah for The Substance, Ramel Ross for Nickel Boys, and Ayoudard for Emilia Perez. Guys, when I made this graphic about an hour ago, I had to take Denis Villeneuve out of my top 5 for my predictions. And I got to be honest with you, I sat there for like 2 or 3 minutes. Do I do this? Because it's a heart versus head thing. What Denis Villeneuve has done with these Dune films is a masterful cinematic spectacle. And anybody that goes to the movies, like, it's particularly like IMAX or, you know, whatever, enhance the sound, that movie it will be, whether you like it or not, when you look at it visually, is breathtaking. It's absolutely spectacular in a modern way, and Denis Villeneuve, along with a lot of the tremendous performances and his crew, made easily one of the best movies of the year and one of the more masterfully made films of the year. I equate it this year to like what Nolan did last year with Oppenheimer, and of course that racked up, including for Nolan. So for Denis to not even get a nomination this year, which has been happening with some other prominent groups, is literally the most baffling thing about award season thus far. I just don't understand how anybody could watch that movie, and especially if you're putting like the two together, which would make it even more unfathomable. You're not going to nominate him for his direction, and that is just, I don't know. I'll move on because it's really hurtful to me, and I think it stinks, but right now I've got him right outside of it because of all the love that Emilia Perez has been getting. And like I said, I think it's on its way to like 10 nominations or more, which would put Ayoudart in for director as well. And then to round out my 10, I've got Edward Berger for Conclave, another movie that they're going to love, I think. John Chu for Wicked, that feel-good kind of tag that's coming along with that. And he's gotten some surprising nominations as of late as well. And then Payal Capadita for All We Imagine Is Light. By the way, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I apologize. But she's been popping up too. And I love that because I just saw this recently and it was a brilliant movie. But it didn't even get nominated. Now, it didn't get submitted by India for international film, which was a bonehead move because now Emilia Perez might ride off into the sunset with that pretty easily. But if it didn't, it may also be a silver lining for them for other nominations, like director, like possibly picture. So look out for that too. Right now, I've only got Kapadia as director right now as a near miss, and then James Mangold would round out my 10. I dropped him down a couple spots. They love Mangold. I just don't know if he can get past the power barrier of Ayoudart, Villeneuve, and Berger. Those are definitely the three that are kind of battling for that fifth spot in my head. Denis Villeneuve Academy. What are we doing? All right, guys, this ran way too long. Don't forget you can find these predictions on my website anytime. I update them about once a week, week and a half or so. And it's just 2psonapod.com. It'll be down in the notes as well in the description if you want to check that out. Now, of course, leading up to the actual nominations on January 17th, I'm going to do one final video with all my predictions, including bottom of the line categories. If these are running 30 minutes, God knows how long that video is going to be. I'll make sure my camera and my backup camera are charged. What did you guys think of these predictions? Let me know down below. Please check out all my other year-end content. I've released a bunch of year-end videos. I'll put all the tags down there and all that crap for you too in the description if you want to check those out. 2024, I think, was an amazing year for cinema. I don't believe these people that are going, oh, it was okay, or this year sucked. I don't know what I'm missing. I saw about 160 movies this year, and there were very few of them that I hated. Like, I thought this was a great year for film, and rounding out my 10 was actually a tough thing to do. Let me know what you guys thought of these Oscar predictions. What did I leave out? Where am I wrong? I know you guys will tell me. Hit me in the comments, and thanks for tuning in. I'll see you out here next time in the garage.